Let's begin by telling you that President Bola Tinubu will hold bilateral talks with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping at the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit between September 4 and 6, 2024. Tinubu will visit China to represent the West African bloc ECOWAS at the summit. The Nigerian president is the chairman of the Authority of Economic Community of West African States, head of state and government. Presidential spokesman Ajurin Galale told State House correspondents on Tuesday that at the summit, Tinubu will discuss regional peace and security. Galale added that the trip aims to yield significant economic benefits for Nigeria. The planned meeting will take place amid a flurry of seizures of Nigerian assets by Chinese firm Zhongshan Fucheng Industrial Investment Co. Limited. The National Emergency Management Authority says at least 49 people have been killed and thousands displaced due to a severe flooding in northeast Nigeria following heavy rains. NEMA spokesperson Manzo Ezekiel confirmed that the states of Jigawa, Adamawa and Taraba have been hardest hit with 41,344 people displaced. This disaster comes on the heels of Nigeria's worst flood in over a decade, which occurred in 2022, killing more than 600 people, displacing around 1.4 million and destroying 440,000 hectares of farmland. The current floods have ravaged 693 hectares of agricultural land, exacerbating the country's battle with double-digit inflation driven by high food prices. The Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, in its 2024 annual flood outlook, has predicted that 31 states with 148 local government areas are at high risk of flooding, while 35 states, including the Federal Capital Territory, with 249 local government areas, are at moderate risk. The remaining 377 local government areas are forecasted to be at low risk. To politics now, the Labour Party has moved against Abia Governor Alex Otti and others, calling for the conduct of the party's National Executive Committee meeting to set up a caretaker committee. The governor had recently met with the national chairman of the party, Julius Abure, where he tendered his intent to convene a NEC meeting on Saturday, August 31. The governor argued that the tenure of the party's current leadership had expired long ago. But the National Working Committee of the party, in a meeting convened by Abure on Tuesday, countered the move, stating that there is no vacuum in the leadership of the party.
Apart from the fact that the Federal High Court in Abuja has already validated the National Convention held in March, there are other persons who have equally challenged the convention of the party, and these cases are as follows. The lists are here and you can see them. It is therefore trite in our laws that once cases are pending in courts, parties are to maintain status quo ante in order not to destroy the rest. In this case, INEC is expected to maintain the status quo ante in order not to destroy the rest of the party. INEC is expected not to descend into the arena of conflict, but to continue with its neutrality and work cordially with the recognized leadership of the party until the courts state otherwise.
Many independent oil marketers in Nigeria have increased the pump prices of premium motor spirit, commonly known as petrol, to between 900 and 1,000 naira per litre. This sharp contrast to the prices at Nigerian National Petroleum Company stations, where petrol sells for between 568 naira and 617 naira per litre, often results in long queues at NNPC outlets. As Nigerians express concerns over the exorbitant rates by independent dealers, the federal government has promised to crack down on filling stations selling petrol at inflated prices. The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority stated that such profiteering is not in the best interest of the public. However, Independent marketers argue that they have been purchasing petrol from private depots at 850 naira per litre, leading to the higher prices. NMDPRA spokesperson George Eneta countered this, claiming depot prices reports show lower figures than what marketers assert. Earlier, News Central correspondent Bernard Akede was out on the streets of Lagos with the latest on the fuel scarcity situation.
I'm in Ikeja, actually. I'm on Latif Jakonde, which is off Agidingbi, if I'm not mistaken. And, well, the good thing is that the long queue here is actually moving thanks to the fuel attendants and the services of the Lagos State Traffic Management Agency, LASMA, who have ensured that there will be no gridlock around here. It was a lot longer than this earlier when we got here, but you know it is moving. Now from here, what you can see might not give you the full picture. I'll swing around so you see better. There had been people here waiting longer, or rather waiting earlier than the fuel station had even opened, which sadly has been the story of things for the past 6 going into 7 weeks now. So it pretty much is business as usual as far as fuel queues and fuel scarcity has been concerned for the past 7 weeks and counting now. I would have loved to give you a full view of the queue. It is pretty long, longer than my eyes can see. It takes a curve, as a matter of fact, further down there. Now, the interesting thing, or the ironical thing also now, is that there's another fuel station just beside here that is not selling. So the issue is, for those who are selling, they have queues in front of them. For those who are not, it's completely short. And now, talking about the price that you mentioned, the NNPCL, it sells for about 568 naira, whereas other fuel stations sell from as high as 613, which is the least I've seen besides the NNPCL, and then 618, 628, 650, as high as, and the price keeps going higher. And that's for Lagos here. We got to hear that, unfortunately, outside Lagos, you can get for as high as 1,000 naira per litre. It's that ridiculous. We have spoken to a few people this morning who are complaining that it is still the same thing.
Let's turn our attention to a disturbing trend of slumping and deaths, sending shockwaves across the country as health experts sound the alarm, urging Nigerians to prioritize health checks. Adebola Adeduba has more in this report.
Having your vitals taken has become imperative in our society as Nigeria grapples with an alarming trend of sudden deaths owing to inexplicable slumping.
On the 3rd of June 2024, the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abubakar Muhammad Guri, was found dead in his office after slumping in his chair. 3 weeks after another casualty was recorded, one of the senior officers of the Nigerian Customs Service, SCN Andrew, also slumped and was pronounced dead a few hours later. Sad news once again rented the air a month later as Nigerian Senator Ifeanyi Uba, representing Anambra South District, died as a result of a cardiac arrest. Thinking there had been a lead over the sad happenings, there comes the sudden demise of Nigeria's iconic singer and songwriter Onyeka Onwenu, affectionately referred to as the Elegant Stallion, who slumped and died after performing at a private function. As Nigerians remained baffled with all the sad happenings was another addition of the Ogun resident electoral commissioner, Barrister Niyi Ijalaye, who slumped and died in Abuja. This doesn't just happen to prominent people. According to the World Health Organization, cardiovascular disease is responsible for the deaths of an estimated 17.9 million people each year.
Mo máa ń yẹ̀ wò kódà gan máa tún ṣe yẹ̀jẹ̀ wò mo máa ń yẹ̀ wò dáadáa ṣé bẹ́ẹ̀ ni tó bá jẹun kánú ló máa sọ pé òun máa ṣẹ́ẹ̀kì ara òun wò kò sóúnjẹ nínú.
It's been long ago. It's been a very long time, over 10 years now. Ṣé person wey never chop go say wan go check BP kẹ̀ báwo mi fẹ́ check ẹ̀ bá máa débẹ̀ sọ ma ní kìlọ́mọ́ wa ní kí tó check BP nǹkan tá à ń ṣe lọ́fẹ̀ẹ́ tẹ́lẹ̀.
The commonest risk factor for people slumping and dying still remains hypertension worldwide. So hypertension is persistent and persistently elevated blood pressure greater than 140/90. And when your blood pressure is high, you need to attend to it. Because if left unattended to, it can lead to a whole lot of complications. And many of those complications are what is responsible for people slumping and dying. And if you check and it's normal, then you don't need to, check all the time. So maybe you can check once in 3 months, once in 6 months. But if you check and it's abnormal, then you need to start, that will take us to treatment. Then, of course, there are 2 major ways in which we address blood pressure. The drugs that you take, that's the pharmacological method of addressing your blood pressure, and the non-pharmacological methods, which are lifestyle changes.
Statistics from the World Health Organization indicate that by 2030, almost 23.6 million people will die from cardiovascular diseases, mainly from heart disease and stroke. These are projected to remain the single leading causes of death in the world. Hospitals are often besieged by people on a daily basis. But how many are here to check your vitals and prevent sudden death? In Lagos for News Central, Adebola Adeduba.
A critical verification process for Nigerian-trained nurses seeking to work abroad has come to a grinding halt, leaving their global career aspirations in limbo. The Nursing and Midwifery Council of Nigeria's unexpected suspension of certificate verification has sparked widespread outrage among affected healthcare professionals who claim it is not only jeopardizing their job prospects, but also exacerbating the brain drain in Nigeria's already beleaguered health sector. News Central's Adeshawa Odushoga reports.
For Nigerian-trained nurses to work abroad, a verification process is required, where certificates are expected to be confirmed by the Nursing and Midwifery Council of Nigeria. However, new indications show that this verification has since been put on hold, forcing nursing boards abroad to stop accepting nursing certificates from Nigerian nurses because they can't verify their authenticity. This was made public by a popular ex-user Olufemilayo Ogunsowu, popularly known as our favorite online doctor, who posted a screenshot of an official response from the Texas Board of Nursing in the U.S. to an applicant stating that the NMCN had stopped verification indefinitely. This sparked outrage both on the online and offline spaces, with affected health workers corroborating these claims with personal encounters.
Most of our nurses, they are just on standstill now. Career-wise, professional-wise, they are not even able to move from where they are. Some of them can no longer practice.
In an interview with News Central TV, a Nigerian forensic mental health nurse practicing in Australia, Charles Oguntade, explains the implication of this latest development on the future of Nigerian nurses working abroad.
For you to be verified, you must have been working as a nurse for like a period of 2 years, that you need to go and get a letter of good standing from your director of nursing. You need to go and get a director of a hospital. You need to go and get a letter of good standing from your last nursing institution, which is quite strange to me. When it is not possible to verify the license, you just open the floodgate for quacks. I've been living here, I've been living and practicing in Australia for the past 20 years. If the situation is conducive for me to continue my practice in Nigeria, I would prefer to live in Nigeria.
Although the National Assembly has urged the NMCN to open its site and commence verification based on its former guideline, many had posited that this was a means to further discourage the brain drain in the sector, which begs the question: how many health workers would be lost to the inadequacies in Nigeria's health sector? In Lagos for News Central, Adeshawa Odushoga.
Welcome back. To education now. The meeting between the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, has been rescheduled for August 28th. The union has threatened a nationwide strike over the government's failure to honor the 2009 agreement. ASUU is demanding better university funding, improved workers' welfare, and an end to the proliferation of universities. The education minister acknowledged that some issues date back to 1981, but say the president is committed to finding a permanent solution. The minister is urging ASUU to be open-minded in the negotiations, considering the interests of all parties. We'll keep you updated on developments in our subsequent bulletins. In the meantime, Nigeria's Education Minister, Tahir Mamman, says underage candidates will no longer be allowed to sit for secondary school leaving examinations. According to Mamman, the West African Examination Council, which oversees the West African Senior School Certificate Examination, and the National Examinations Council, NECO, which plans the Senior School Certificate Examination, have received instructions from the federal government to adhere to the requirement that candidates be at least 18 years old to be eligible for both examinations. He also insisted that the age limit for any candidate to write the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination organized by the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board remained 18 years. To discuss this, we are joined by co-founder, Edu Planner, Oriyomi Ogunwale. Hello, Oriyomi. Thank you so much for joining us at this time.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
All right. So what are the main challenges that are associated with implementing an age limit policy for the WASC in Nigeria's diverse educational system?
I think first thing first, what we need to actually understand is that the 6334 system, which Nigeria runs presently, is actually a guidance. Is to guide the education of children to say they spend 6 years in primary, 3 in junior secondary, 3 in senior secondary, and 4 in universities. And looking at the development in this country over the years, you know that a child might spend 6 years or 5 years in primary. And for you to study a 4-year course, for example, in the university might take 6-7 years. So if the federal government is coming out with a policy that says that they want to actually ensure that children now complete their education according to the number of years, then it's a disservice. And it's a very, very worrying development. And I remember in the last administration when we're going to be talking about curriculum and the federal government was talking about religion and how they wanted to add new input into English language and whether it was Islam or something. So one of the big problems that we have now is that in implementing policies, we actually focus on the wrong things. If we are going to talk about the secondary school, university education, it's a laudable idea. However, how do we want to enforce this? Because what this then means now is that you will see people coming up with fake certificates. Something I've thought about in recent days is what if people come up with fake age certificates, or they say that, oh, I actually was in school in so years. So this does still not solve the situation of saying that we have underage people in our university system. What we need to do is to focus on how do we ensure that we are producing the best type of graduates in Nigeria. And you look at some of our genius children who can perform tasks at a younger age. They can perform.
Can you hear me, please? Before it gets to that bad, to the extent of people faking certificates due to the age limit, how do you think that the age restriction, impact the academic and professional progression of students who are older or even younger than their designated age? Because previously we've had, students who are a lot younger doing so well in these exams.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to education is about how well you are able to open up the mind of a child, how well you can motivate them to want to learn. And one of those things, and that is what I stated earlier, that we focus on the wrong things. Now, the age issue is not, in today's technology-driven age, it's not really a barrier anymore. It's not a barrier. What we should even be looking at is to say we want to review the 6334 that is very, very static and begin to say for you to go to maybe junior secondary, from primary to junior secondary, you must be able to score this particular number of grades in your common entrance, for example, just like we have the SAT in the developed countries. So you can say this is the number that we want you, the score that we want you to have to progress. Because age is not really something you want to put as a barrier anymore for entrance. You see young people who are doing very, very well. You see people who are older, who are supposed to be of age 18, for example, who cannot perform basic learning tasks. So how do we then, there's no justification for us to put age here to say that is the reason why you write your name.
So are there projected long-term implications of this age limit policy on the higher education system and the workforce readiness in Nigeria?
So one of the big issues that we have in Nigeria today, and it's fundamental, is that we have not been able to motivate young people to want to learn anymore. And that is the big issue. And in situations where they are motivated, there are no facilities, there are no resources to want to learn. And that is what is causing the brain drain. That is what is making people not to perform very well. That's what is making us not to be able to provide or produce high quality professionals. It is not a matter of age at all. So if we want to go the route of age, are we saying that the people who are above 18, the people who graduated at 25, 26 from the university system are performing better today? Can they develop a proposal? Can they write a good letter, which are basic for a graduate? That is not the big issue here. And I think we are shifting the post again to say that it is because of age. That's why we are not able to produce quality graduates. That is not true. We can produce great professionals that are still very young at 21, at 20, at 22, at 23. What we need to do is to look at the system again, provide adequate facilities, provide great lecturers. The news before this is talking about ASUU strike, and it's funny. So if we want to address this issue, age is no longer a barrier. In this technology-driven age where the bigger organizations, global organizations are not even looking at your CV anymore. They are not looking at what you graduated with. They want to look at your skill set. So it is our skill set that we're supposed to look at and say, this is what the direction we should be going towards, not to now talk of age. Okay. So if you have somebody who is age 18 and does not pass the UTME or the WAEC, what does that then do? All right. That then means that they have to wait.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Oriyomi, for giving us your expert's opinion on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
With that, we'll move to Nigeria's extreme weather, where flood kills at least 49 people and has displaced over 41,000 people. And this is according to the National Emergency Management Authority, saying that thousands have been displaced as well due to severe flooding in northeast Nigeria following heavy rains. Now we have joining us an environmentalist, Desmond Majekodumi, to discuss the impact of flooding on the environment. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you.
All right. So, Desmond, how widespread and frequent, have flooding events become in Nigeria over the past decade?
Nigeria, just like every other country in the world, is beginning to experience far more dramatic and severe weather conditions. And one of those weather conditions is heavier rain. And it's really the most basic and fundamental of science, because there is more heat coming onto this planet right now. In fact, 2023 was the hottest year ever recorded by humanity. Already in 2024, we've had 3 of the hottest days ever recorded. And if you have more heat, you're going to have more evaporation from the water. And if you have more evaporation, you're going to have heavier rain. So what's actually happening now in Nigeria and many, many other countries in the world is what they call rain bombs, where tremendous amounts of rain will just fall in a short amount of time. And this is what is causing the floods. And unfortunately, our hearts go out to our citizens who are affected by this, but it is happening more frequently and more severely in our dear country. It's a major issue. We were warned about it. The scientists of the world told us many decades ago that if we continued pouring the amount of poison that we're pouring, the amount of toxic gases that we're pouring into the atmosphere, we're going to upset this very intricate, but what can only be classified as a miraculous system that keeps this earth running in such a wonderful way. And that's exactly what we've done. So we're now experiencing the results of our negative actions against nature. And there's one thing about nature: she gives you back whatever you sow into her.
Sad indeed, Desmond. Now, as an environmentalist, can you explain the primary ecological impacts of flooding on Nigeria's ecosystem? And I'm talking about forests, coastal areas, and the rest.
As you see, the reality is that nature is such a wonderful, wonderful system. And naturally, you will have, some heavier types of rain. This has happened throughout the history of this earth. But nature herself has a way to adapt to this. And that's why we have so many streams and so many rivers, and we have these wonderful mangrove areas all along so many of the coasts. And what they do is they absorb the heavier rain or even the lighter rain, and they channel it through the streams and rivers into the lagoons. But what has been happening is that a lot of these streams, a lot of these rivers and natural evacuation systems that nature has provided, they're not so effective now. Why? Because we have destroyed a tremendous amount of the vegetation that is by the streams, that is by the river banks, okay? And that vegetation has multiple roles, like so many of the aspects of nature. And one of those roles in this regard is the root zone. You have millions of roots that are tangled together under the soil. And this is holding the soil in place so that you will not get erosion. Okay? So you remove the vegetation, no more roots, a whole bunch of erosion now. And what happens is that erosion pours silt and sand into the river and stream beds. So they become higher and they have less capacity to evacuate the water that comes. And at the same time, we're getting heavier water. So basically, it's nature just telling humanity, hey, 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 wake up and start living harmoniously with me. Because the reality is that mankind, humanity, the human species, requires nature for everything. She relies entirely on nature.
All
But
right,
nature,
now, yeah. Speaking of, sorry to cut you off. Yeah, speaking of nature, we've talked about, displaced people. We've also talked about people dying. But what about, flooding's contribution to the loss of biodiversity in Nigeria, particularly when it comes to endangered species?
It is causing tremendous havoc there. Although it's not causing as much as we humans are causing directly, because we're wiping out many species into extinction. But the flooding definitely affects that. But another aspect, another negative aspect that we are feeling right here in Nigeria and so many other countries in Africa and the rest of the world is what the flooding does to our agricultural systems, because we are a rain-fed agricultural system country, and we rely on seasonal rains. And when the floods come, sometimes they come out of season, and they just wipe out the crops. You've grown crops, and you're now waiting, okay, the rains have eased, the crops are going to grow, and then, whoa, it just wipes them out. So it is obliterating a lot of our food systems. It's causing terrible, terrible damage. And again, it's a wake-up call, which so many of us are sort of trying to ignore because it's an inconvenient truth. But the reality is that nature is telling humanity, you cannot continue this way. You have been causing far too much harm, far too much damage, which is driven mainly by our unbridled desire for accumulating wealth at all costs. And once you put money ahead of people, ahead of planet, you're going to have problems. And sadly, this is exactly what has been happening. So nature has given us a warning sign, because if we continue this way, it's going to get a lot worse. We're causing, in some cases now, irreparable damage to the wonderful, miraculous systems, the life support ecosystems of nature. And once you start causing those irreparable damages and you start taking strands out of the web of life, like you referred to, driving species into extinction, they're all part of a web of life. They have roles that they play. You know, there's so many roles, typical role. The elephant in the dry season, the tusk of the elephant, one of the major things that the elephant does is it digs water holes for other animals to drink, etc., etc. Has a lot of roles. But you take these species out, then you start damaging the very web of life. And if you take too many strands out of the web, God forbid, it collapses. And in this case, we're talking of our very life support system, the life support systems of our children. And I do believe that we as Africans, we as Nigerians are going to wake up to this call, and we're going to start doing the right thing, stop polluting nature in the way that we've been doing, and just ensure that we are living in harmony with nature. Because as I referred to earlier, nature doesn't need us at all. In fact, if human beings are taken out of the equation, nature will actually revive. But if we change our attitudes, then we shall be actually offering a useful service to nature. And that service is definitely not to cause extinction of species, it's not to cause massive flooding because of the overheating of the atmosphere, which is anthropogenically caused. It is definitely not to do that. It is, in fact, to replenish the earth, to care for creation.
Yes.
This is our injunction. Scriptures.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Desmond, for your time and also for speaking to us on this.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Now, away from that, the Lagos state government has announced that there are no active confirmed cases of Mpox in the state. The State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, made the announcement while briefing journalists in Lagos. However, the state government says it is intensifying efforts towards public health sensitization to raise awareness and allay fears among residents. According to Commissioner Abayomi, the Mpox variant, Clade 1B, considered aggressive, has not been detected in West Africa, let alone Lagos. The state government says it is taking proactive measures to tackle the disease, including monitoring possible importation points such as ports, airports, and cargo points. Mpox is a viral disease that causes pus-filled lesions resembling rashes to appear on the skin. The variants circulating are most commonly found in the Central African region, including Congo, Cameroon, Rwanda, and Burundi.
We do not have any active cases in Lagos at this point in time. What we're doing here is preemptively preparing, because of the mobility of Lagosians, Nigerians, and Africans in general. There is a high probability, because there are 4 airlines that come into Lagos from Central Africa. Therefore, the risk of importing a case into Lagos is there. Quite often, it's very difficult to distinguish between a bad case of chickenpox and Mpox. And so it's important that we're able to carry out these tests. And because of Ebola, COVID, and other infectious diseases that frequently come periodically into Lagos, we're building that capacity at the Lagos State Biobank, the Infectious Disease Hospital, and our partners in LUTH, in LASUTH, the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, and NCDC Public Health Lab in Lagos, to be able to not only categorically define Mpox, but also to be able to sequence the virus so that we can tell exactly what clade it is, what subtype it is, and whether indeed it is mutating in this environment.
Away from that, as the Delta State government begins talks with the State Council of the Nigeria Labour Congress and counterpart Trade Union Congress on the implementation of the new minimum wage, workers in the state have expressed optimism, urging the committee not to shortchange their interests. News Central correspondent Austin Azu, who spoke to a cross-session of the state workforce in Asaba, the state capital, tells us more.
The demands for new minimum wage for workers across Nigeria after President Bola Tinubu's pronouncement of subsidy removal became intensive as organized labor leaders, after several unproductive negotiations with governments, embarked on warning strikes, which culminated in an agreement of a new minimum wage of 70,000 naira as minimum wage for civil servants across Nigeria. After the agreements between the federal government and organized labor leaders, state governments were mandated to further discuss with the labor leaders in their states to agree on how much the states can pay their workforce. In Delta State, Governor Sheriff Oberewori at the State Executive Council meeting agreed to pay the new minimum wage, but directed Secretary to the state government and the Commissioner for Finance to meet with the organized labor in the state to work out the fine details.
Delta State will not go less. Yeah, because it's a law now. So we'll navigate between that 70 or more, as the case may be.
These civil servants applauded the governor's directives and urged the committee not to shortchange their interest at the negotiation table.
What we can advocate is to ensure for the state government and the committee, the labor committee, to ensure that the adjustment is not done in a way that it will shortchange workers.
Well, our government is not a biased one. I believe the people will be his choice.
As they say 70, if they want to pay the 70, they can pay it. But for my own opinion, if they can add it to 100, to be okay.
Even the government know that there's no 70,000 naira minimum wage can never be enough for every Nigerian's, especially civil servants, to take care of their bills and the family. So we're expecting like 150 if they can, so that they can cushion the effects of the fuel hike and the things in the markets.
With the prevalent hardship in the country, it's imperative that the welfare of workers be made a top priority for employers of labor in both the public and private sector. In Asaba for News Central, Austin Azu.
Thank you, Austin, for that report. Now, the Premium Bread Makers Association of Nigeria, PBAN, has reaffirmed its dedication to maintaining the highest standards of food safety and quality in bread production across the country. In response to recent unfounded rumors and misinformation, PBAN emphasizes that no substandard or harmful materials are used in production of bread by its member bakeries. The association said it is committed to upholding the integrity of the Nigerian bread-making industry and ensuring compliance with all regulations set by the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, and other relevant bodies. PBAN strongly condemned a viral video circulating on social media which falsely claims that bread produced in Nigeria contains unwholesome ingredients. The association said the video is misleading and damaging to the reputation of its hard-working members who produce safe and nutritious bread for the public. Thank you for staying with us. Now, at least 20 people were killed when Sudanese paramilitaries fired artillery at a camp for displaced people in the country's Darfur region. The local committee, in a statement posted online, blamed the deaths on the deliberate shelling by the RSF militias on the camp's market and square. It did not specify when the attack occurred. Now, the committee is part of a grassroots network that used to organize pro-democracy protests and have coordinated frontline aid since the war between army and the RSF began last year. Intense fighting has pushed the Zamzam camp near El Fasher into famine. Staying in Sudan, where the health ministry reports at least 132 deaths due to flooding and heavy rains this year. The intense rainy season has affected 10 states, displacing 31,666 families and 129,650 individuals. Flooding has caused 12,420 homes to collapse and 11,472 partial collapses. The Arbat Dam collapsed, washed away villages, killing 13 people, with 210 still missing. Relief efforts are ongoing, and the unusual rain pattern has led to a surge in cholera cases, with 11,327 reported since June. War has exacerbated the crisis, with both sides accused of war crimes. The World Health Organization attributes the epidemic to climate conditions and water contamination. Prosecutors in the Democratic Republic of Congo are seeking the death penalty for 50 defendants, including 3 Americans who are on trial over an alleged coup attempt. Military prosecutor Innocent Rajabu urged the judges to sentence all but one of the accused to death for their involvement in the alleged coup attempt. In the early hours of May 19, armed men attacked the home of Economy Minister Vital Kamerhe before moving onto the nearby Palais de la Nation, which houses the offices of President Felix Tshisekedi. The army later announced that the attempted coup had been thwarted by security forces.
Sauf les prévenus Tikimo Gounoumane, là il est seul. Tous les prévenus, tous les sénateurs, sauf lui. Tous les prévenus, à la fin des morts pour l'association des malfaiteurs, 50 prévenus, tous, sauf Tikimo.
In the world of sports, former Rivers United captain and 2022 NPFL champion Nyima Nwagwa has arrived in Saudi Arabia to complete his move to second division club Al-Saad Club. Nwagwa, who played a crucial role in Rivers United's successful campaign in the Nigerian Professional Football League in 2022, was warmly received on his arrival at King Khalid International Airport in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where he was warmly received by Mohammed Al-Desri, the supervisor of Al-Saad first team. The move is the 31-year-old's first contract with a foreign club. He is the second Nigerian football star to move to the kingdom in the last 1 week after Super Eagles vice-captain William Troost Ekong joined newly promoted Premier League side Al-Khouloud. Arsenal have completed the signing of Spain midfielder Mikel Marino from Real Sociedad for a fee that could reach £31.6 million. The 28-year-old moves to North London on a 4-year contract with the option of a further 12 months after the Gunners agreed to pay an initial £27.4 million plus £4.2 million in add-ons. Marino was part of the Spain squad who won Euro 2024, featuring in all 7 matches in the tournament and scoring a late winner in extra time against Germany in the quarter-final. He becomes Arsenal's 3rd signing of the transfer window after the arrival of Italy defender Riccardo Calafiori and Spain goalkeeper David Raya, with the club activating an option to buy him from Brentford following his loan move a year ago. Marino has previous experience of the Premier League, having spent a year at Newcastle before moving to Real Sociedad in 2018. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our top stories. We told you that President Tinubu to hold talks with China's leader amid flurry of seizure of Nigerian assets. We also told you that floods have killed at least 49, displaced over 41,000 in Nigeria. You also heard that paramilitary shelling has killed 20 in camp for displaced people in Sudan. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Dashen, Usman.